Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, regardless of the time you're watching this. We're just so excited that you are joining us today for the latest and greatest episode of the Richard Watkins podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have to give a huge shout out to the organization that makes this podcast possible, the Science Policy Action Network. Really briefly, if you're a scientist, and you're trying to figure out a way how to communicate your research to the public, come check out the Science Policy Action Network. Or if you're a researcher and you're trying to make sure that your research is understood by policymakers, come check out the Science Policy Action Network. Or if you yourself are a policymaker and you're just trying to wrap your mind around the bleeding edge of health, innovation, or education, obviously, please contact the Science Policy Action Network. You can find out more information about the Science Policy Action Network at www.span-inc.org. That is www.span-inc.org. Check us out. We'll be happy to work with you, and we have your back. All right, without any further ado, we have a very, very, very special guest with us today. We have Aynsley Szczesniak. Now, Aynsley Szczesniak is a proactive STEMinist and youth leader, empowering women in STEM to shatter the glass ceiling. She is a honors Carolina scholar at UNC Chapel Hill. Shout out the Tar Heels, where she is also the youngest member of the advisory board for the Carolina Women's Center. She is proud to be a student and to be the student STEM programs chair of the Association for Women in Science North Carolina, the North Carolina state lead of Million Women Mentors, and a Athena Young Professional Award finalist. As a young woman in STEM, she has felt the paralyzing terror of imposter syndrome and gender bias. She realized that what carries her through is self-confidence, self-advocacy, and a network of trusted mentors that she can depend on. That's why she has built the Speak Out Sisterhood, a global network empowering young women to advance in STEM. As CEO, she unites a team of incredible young women worldwide in a mission to equip one another with the skills and strength to fight for our right to be in STEM and to take the lead in innovation that makes STEM so exhilarating. It is an honor, privilege, and just really cool moment to invite and welcome Aynsley to the latest episode of the Richard Watkins podcast. Aynsley, hopefully I got that right. I was transitioning from you writing from your perspective, but me also reading it as a bio. There were a few times I messed up, but with that out of the way, I'm super, super excited that you're here. Did I leave anything out? Did I mess up anything? Please feel free to correct me. What did I mess up or what did I leave out in your introduction?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And I don't know how I'm supposed to follow up on that incredible introduction. I feel like I'm being introduced to like the Oscars or something here. I'm so glad to be on the podcast. I know it's been a long time coming, but I'm glad to be here. And I say one other thing to add is that I'm very, very happy to be partnered with SPAN for our internship program that we run, SPO Sisterhood, our internship program. And so that's how we met. And very, very happy to have been able to build that connection.
The feeling is obviously mutual. If you want to take this opportunity to do a quick plug of your internship, because we're so excited to be partners with you, but please tell us a little bit about the internship. And I've got a few questions that I want to ask you afterwards, but please, the floor is yours.
Sounds good. So, Speak Out Sisterhood, as Dr. Watkins said, is a global network elevating youth to eradicate barriers to equality for women in STEM. I founded it in the fall of last year, and the intent of Speak Out Sisterhood is to bridge the gap between young women who are so dedicated to and passionate about the advancement of women in STEM careers, connect them with leading organizations across the world who are also really dedicated to that work, but maybe don't have that youth perspective that's so incredibly vital. And through our internship program, it's called Generation Yes, which is all capitalized and stands for Young Empowered Feminists. And it's an 8-week program, remote, where teams of our interns are matched with different partner organizations, SPAN, and they develop a social impact project designed to answer some question or solve some problem related to women's advancement in STEM. So for instance, one of the ones that we worked on with SPAN last year and last session was women's health equity data, looking at that in North Carolina and trying to figure out what are some of the biggest gaps, where do we still need more information, what are the most pressing issues that policymakers want to know about. And so we're going to be continuing that project into the fall with our second iteration of the program, looking specifically at like maternal health care and prenatal and postnatal care. And just it's really exciting to get to be launching the program. And I'm not sure if if you're listening to this past August 5th, but August 5th is the deadline for our fall application. So if you're listening to this before August 5th and you're interested, please do apply. We are really excited to be doubling the amount of internships this time, some amazing new partners, amazing new projects. And I'm sure you can tell from the smile on my face, I'm really proud of our team and really proud of everything we do. And I just can't wait to run the program again. I'm so excited.
That's awesome. Walk me through, what it feels like to be student and an entrepreneur, right? I've got questions about, what is a feminist? That's going to be my next question. So as you're
That's a
answering
good
this
one.
one, if you want to start thinking about, but because that's like a term that you will hear all the time.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's probably time to set the record straight from your perspective on what a feminist is. But before you kind of launch into that, I just want to jump in the shoes of, another entrepreneur. But I think one of the things that, make you special and unique is that you're a student
Mhm.
who is also a CEO. What is that experience like? How is it different from being a normal student? And if there's a student out there that's got an idea and they want to be, the next CEO, they want to be the next Aynsley, what kind of tips would you kind of communicate to them? And what are some kind of obstacles that you kind of face as a student and entrepreneur?
It's a really good question. I'd say, it's definitely a different experience running a company as well as being a student. The thing that I always try and prioritize, because our company also is student run. And so the thing that I always prioritize and I always make sure to stress to my teammates is school comes first. Like I'm a pre-med, I know how important that GPA is. And I definitely always make sure to put academics first, no matter what. Um, but even so, it helps me to sort of block out times of my day or of my week where I'm going to focus on those specific things. So for instance, maybe if I have more classes on one day, I'll focus more on academics those days versus like if I have a day that's like maybe 1 or 2 classes and I have a good chunk of time in the morning, I can spend that time in the morning writing emails and prepping for the program and all of that. Um, just really making sure that I am aware of how I'm spending my time and making sure that I'm allotting myself the time that I know I need for the things that are most important for me. Um, I'd say again, it really, really helps to have a team being able to work together and delegate tasks and depend on each other to fulfill these roles that are so necessary for running an organization is really, really, really helpful as well. Because obviously I can't do everything on my own. Running a like program itself would be hard enough on loan, let alone an entire company. And so I'm really indebted to all my teammates for being so invested in the work that we're doing and so communicative. And that's really, I think, one of the important parts of having of being able to build a strong company is having a team that's invested in that work and you can rely on, you can trust. And I'm just so happy to have been able to have that. A lot of people ask me, do you sleep? And I promise that I do, but I don't know. I think I thrive on like that sort of sprint feeling where it's like there's so much happening, and like every day is just jam-packed of exciting stuff. And in the moments that you do get to sort of pause and breathe are just as fulfilling and just as invigorating as those days where you do have like 4 meetings and like 8 emails to reply to, and like so many exciting announcements to post about and stuff. So I think it's just about balancing, and I have been able to learn through experience how to do that well.
I think another thing that's unique is not only are you a CEO, right? And there are few CEOs, right? Just out there in the world, just as a percentage of the population, there are few CEOs, but you're also a founder, right? You
Mhm.
aren't just plugged into an already established organization. You had to, first of all, you saw a need or a gap, and then you put together structure, right, to kind of deal with that need, to deal with that gap. What extra layer of, maybe difficulty, or how is it different to also be a founder, compared to somebody who is a CEO, which is amazing in and of itself, but having created just, from the ground up, what is it like to also be a founder?
I love that question. I've never really thought about the difference, but I think one definite difference, or at least one different distinct thing to being a founder, is that personal connection that you have. Because this is my baby in a sense. I built Speak Out Sisterhood from the scribbled drawings on a notepad at a conference, which is where it started. And to see the way that it's grown and developed, and I understand it so intricately and so deeply, um, because it is built out of my passions and my deep love for this work and my deep passion for empowering young people, especially women. Um, and so definitely that like personal attachment slash connection to it is a one thing I think that makes a founder different. Another thing I think would be I have seen it all. Like I have been here since the beginning, and so some of our teammates who maybe have joined more recently haven't seen the way that we definitely had to get our footing for the first few months, because founding something, taking an idea and making a reality is so difficult, because there's no there's no guidelines, there's no roadmap to say, oh, okay, you have this idea, I'm going to give you a 10-step plan for how you can turn that into this other thing, especially when it's something like what we're trying to do, which is fill a gap and create something that no one else has ever done before. It's a struggle and it's hard, and the people who stand by you through it all are really valuable people to keep around and people to stay close with. And I'm just really glad for the people who did trust in us at the very beginning, um, and who have been with us throughout the whole journey, and who have seen the way that we really grown and changed and become more confident in the specific um, the specific role that we want to play in society and in the world.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Now, I know one of the words that I read, right, when going over, your bio at the very beginning there was STEMinist, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just very interested, right? So that's obviously STEM plus feminist, right? So let's go
Mm-hmm.
with, what is the definition of a feminist? Because, like I said, we hear it talked about all the time, and I don't know if there's like differences in working definitions. But again, as a founder, as somebody who's created something, designed to address an issue, and then how you describe yourself then as a feminist, what is your working definition of a feminist?
I love the question, because I was recently reading a book a while back about this very topic, because a lot of people associate feminism with like radical, like women throwing things and like complete defiance of everything that society thinks a woman should be. And I think that the word feminist has gotten a really bad rap because it is associated with that kind of extremism. But I feel like when personally, I think a feminist is just someone who is there to champion the power of women, whether that's vocally through a protest or just at work not being misogynistic. Like feminism, anybody can practice feminism, anybody can be a feminist. You don't have to be a woman, you don't have to be majoring in women's and gender studies. Feminism to me is more of a way of valuing women rather than a specific kind of behavioral archetype that you have to fill. Um, and so STEMinist in that sense is really about, particularly being a champion of women's advancement in STEM. And again, that can come in any shape and form. But I first learned that word from a woman who came to speak to my the club that I founded in high school. She taught it to me, and I've loved it ever since because I love that it really does. It's eye catching and it stands out, and it also really does embody the fact that STEM, like women deserve to be in STEM, and women in STEM should be champions for the women that follow them, the next generation. And um, yeah, I love that word, feminism, and I think it's such an important trait that should be celebrated more in the women who do pursue STEM, because every woman who is in STEM is in essence a breaking down a barrier in their own way. And again, that does not have to be, you don't have to be the one picking battles with the HR department, but you can still be championing your value and your worth and the worth of the other women with whom you work.
Wow. And also, I just want to point out, humble brag, but also pay attention to detail, read in between the lines. Ainsley also said that she was starting organizations when she was in high school. Okay. So, you know, it's never too early to get started in creating structure, organization, organizing people behind a specific cause. So,
Exactly.
I just wanted to kind of
Exactly.
like, wait, let's go back. You did say you started an organization in high school, but let's go back to what you were talking about feminism and STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. What are some unique challenges that women face in STEM, and what are some of those challenges that you currently are trying to address? And if I and forgive me for just asking so many questions and not taking a breath.
No,
I'm
this is
just
like I could talk about this for hours.
yeah, I'm just so excited, and like I'm on my second cup of coffee, and so like this is like prime time hour, right, for conversation. All right, so
Uh-huh.
have you yourself faced any of the challenges that that you're about to mention in regards to challenges for women in STEM? And currently, we're not talking about historically, but currently, what are you seeing?
I think one of the biggest challenges is confidence and self-advocacy, which I think are kind of inexplicably tied together. But um, we've all probably heard of imposter syndrome. Maybe you've also heard of the confidence gap. These basically describe the phenomenon where women are like devalued and made to feel like they don't belong someplace, or they aren't worthy of someplace from the multitude of different reasons: social cues, gender bias, the way that people maybe don't respect their opinions, um, fear of being branded as bossy or difficult if they do speak out. All of these different factors that compound to put women in a position where they really aren't willing to or comfortable with standing up and speaking out and speaking up for themselves. And that's I hate the word imposter syndrome too, because it makes it seem like that fear of an uncomfortable situation or an unfamiliar situation is bad and you should avoid it at all costs, which is not true. Being in those unfamiliar situations is how you grow and how you learn. The problem is that women are conditioned to avoid things like that and to just be demure and non-troublesome and do things that are easy and not difficult. And so STEM by nature is hard. That's the allure of it. That's why, like, I love math because it's so challenging. If it was easy, I would be bored by it. But the problem is when we get into those spaces of STEM where we are doing those really hard math problems, or we're puzzling through some chemistry equations, and we feel that sense of, I don't know what I'm doing. We don't have the years and years of societal influence telling us it's okay to feel that way. What instead we feel is, oh, I'm not good enough for this, or I should be doing this because I'm not smart enough, or um, like I don't belong here. Um, and so I've definitely felt that. I've felt imposter syndrome so deeply. The first time I ever presented at a conference, for instance, this was the first time I'd ever done that. Super out of my comfort zone. I mean, I've been in musical theater, but this is very different, obviously. And I, at the very end of my presentation, the Q&A session, I got like a few questions that I just really kind of rattled me because I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. And so for like good couple hours afterwards, I mean, I went to sessions, but I was kind of in this brain fog of, did they like it? Did they think I wasn't professional enough? Like, why would they ask that question? What did I say wrong? Like, imposter syndrome just slammed into me. And it felt so like I knew that I was feeling that way. I recognized that I was feeling like an imposter, but at the same time, I couldn't just like escape those feelings because they were really taking over. And I think when it comes to how we can overcome those barriers, one of the biggest things I think that women need to feel comfortable with doing is advocating for their own value, and whether that's by finding somebody who can vouch for them when maybe they aren't feeling as up to it, or having that inner strength and inner courage to stand up and say, hey, I belong here. This is my worth. I bring value to this place. um Even if it's simply just for being myself, like I don't need to be the smartest person in the room, but I am a unique individual with my own experiences and my own perspectives and my own brilliance, and that's what I bring here. I think that women just don't have enough opportunities to do that, which is one of the reasons why our program is designed to be a place where women can assert um, their own leadership and be experts in something, and get to feel that that confidence and um that adrenaline rush when you realize like, oh, someone actually believes in me, like I do have value in this conversation.
You think do you think other disciplines, face, similar challenges in regards to women in that discipline? I mean, I know you spoke about, math being hard and difficult, and, no doubt STEM is difficult. But I mean, we could say, other disciplines are difficult as well. Do you
Mhm.
think the same thing holds true for those other disciplines that we may find women underrepresented in? Or if you want to, or like, all right, or if you want to look at it like this, like within
Mhm.
STEM, there are, and forgive me for being all over the place, right? My mind is just like just going. I don't know the best way to ask the question that I'm trying to
That's
ask,
good.
right? Or even if you look within STEM, right, and you take a
Mhm.
field within STEM that doesn't show the same disparity as another field within STEM, right? Say, for instance, if you compare, right, the computer sciences and the life sciences, right, both need better representation within their respective fields. But when you compare the fields to each other, right, computer science is lagging behind your life sciences as far as, equitable representation of women in that specific field. Does that question make sense? Like why are disciplines different? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to ask. Do you think they are, and why do you think they are?
I think that's a super valid question. I personally, I'm not an expert on this, so I can't speak to exactly how it is, but just from like my basic knowledge, I think part of it is that women are conditioned to pursue, or like I don't know, like it's either that women tend to enjoy those more like caregiving maternal roles just because we feel that sense of fulfillment of, oh, I'm really doing something good. Women tend to choose a career that they get that like emotional satisfaction from. They're not usually out for money, and I'm not to be like generalizing things, but this is what research had shown. And so we may, like, I personally, I'm gonna go into women's health. So I'm like the epitome of the STEM woman going into kind of a maternalistic career, because I enjoy that feeling of being a part of my patients' lives. And I feel like we are, there are a lot of messages that society sends or telling women you should enjoy that kind of stuff, like do that. But at the same time, the women who don't enjoy that are definitely not supported. Like I have a friend who's really smart. She is going to law school, but she said that in like high school, people really kind of pressured her to go into STEM because she was smart, but she didn't want to do that. She wants to go into law. But I think the problem is that when women do express interest in a field that like society doesn't think they should really fit into, there's not as much of a celebration of it. Like women in math, literally every single time I talk to somebody who's a woman identifying person doing some sort of math career, they're just like, I wish like people didn't think I was crazy. Like people always like laugh at me for being a math major. I'm a math minor and I get that all the time. I embrace it. But at the same time, it is kind of annoying that the first reaction that people have to a woman doing a like a hard skills career like computer science or math is hilarity and disbelief, which is not great for our self-esteem. And I'm not gonna lie, but I think that's the main thing. Just the fact that like the the career that you choose is pretty much, in my opinion, based on your passion and or finance. So financials. That's basically kind of what it comes down to. And at least for me. And um when you have a society that not only pays women less for pretty much every career, but then also really tries to sort of funnel them down one or two or three main paths, it can be really hard to break against that messaging. And that's why you probably don't see many women in these fields, not necessarily because they don't have the brain power to thrive in them, because we obviously do, but just we don't have the support networks to tell us that, yes, you do belong there.
Great. Again, Aynsley Szczesniak, CEO of the Speak Out Sisterhood. A huge shout out. Wait, before we go any further, where do people find you? What are some socials? How do they keep up with the happenings of the Speak Out Sisterhood?
So we're on Instagram. It's at speak_out_sisterhood. I'm also on Instagram. It's just my full name. So please definitely do give me a follow. We have a website, which is speakoutsisterhood.org, and we are on LinkedIn. I am an avid LinkedIn user. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, I will probably connect with you almost instantly. So
Awesome,
definitely
awesome.
look us up anywhere.
That's
But yeah, that's where we are.
That's awesome. Do you think there's any kind of link between, speaking of links and LinkedIn, but do you think there's any kind of link between ambition and imposter syndrome? And again, imposter syndrome is like that feeling that you have saying that, like, I don't belong here. And it's
Mhm.
oftentimes due to external conditioning telling you that you don't belong there. Maybe there's not too many people that look like you in that space. Maybe you've received messages prior to being in that space that suggest that you are not supposed to be there. So there is that feeling of not belonging, imposter syndrome. But do you think there's a link between imposter syndrome and ambition, like a positive correlation? So the more ambitious you are, right, the more you are feeling that you don't belong in a certain space. Do you think there's a link there at all?
That's a really good question. I would assume so, because when I think of ambition, I think of having big goals and not being afraid to chase after them. Like I definitely am very ambitious and I wholeheartedly embrace that. Um, but at the same time, when you are ambitious, you are more willing to and likely to put yourself in those places where maybe you aren't as familiar with what you're doing or you're not as comfortable, and that's where you really learn the most. But at the same time, that's also where you're the most vulnerable to feeling like that imposter, because you don't know what you're doing. If you're totally content just sort of staying on your own path and not trying to ascend any kind of mountain, you're probably not going to encounter very many experiences where you're thrust out of your comfort zone. versus if you are someone like me, where I have very high goals for what I want to do with my life and the kind of impact I want to make on the world. I definitely am in these kinds of imposter syndrome situations all the time. But where I'm able to stay away from falling into that trap of imposter syndrome is recognizing when, like, maybe instead of being like, oh, I don't know this must mean because like I don't belong here, just reaching out to people I know who can help me through it. Like that has definitely been invaluable as I've been building my company. I obviously do not have any sort of experience building a company, so having a team of people I can rely on has been just invaluable. Things like that, just being able to complement your ambition with support and resources and realistic expectations for your own capacity as a human being who has to eat and breathe and sleep every now and then. That's, I think, the essential formula for being an ambitious leader.
Nice, nice, nice. I just imagine, somebody trying to climb a building, right? I love watching these videos on TikTok where there's somebody who's trying to scale a skyscraper and they do it, right? But I imagine the
Mm-hmm.
higher they go, well, I mean, I don't know this, but this is just me, right? If I was climbing a building, the higher I ascended, the more likely it is that the thought would cross my mind, oh, I shouldn't have done this. I, why did I even get started climbing this skyscraper, right? I'm like, this is the dumbest idea
uh,
ever. And so that's what I imagine being like imposter syndrome. It's like, I shouldn't be here. And that gets
mhm.
worse the higher you climb. So that's just
I
how I
love
did.
that analogy. What a great analogy. You're so
Well, I
right.
just no, I literally just saw a guy climbing a skyscraper, right? And then right when he got to the top, he was arrested. So I don't know if that's the best analogy, but he was yes, and he was recording it, and he was just climbing, and the ground was
Hmm.
just a distant memory, and I was just like,
Oh
oh
gosh.
my gosh, like this is so high. Um,
Mm.
but hold on, so you were talking about surrounding yourself with a network. And I know a key component of the Speak Out Sisterhood is mentors and mentoring, right? So
Hmm.
how did you decide that was one of the directions that you wanted to go in? Was finding mentors for aspiring researchers or aspiring contributors to STEM. Talk to me about that being the direction that you wanted to go in with the Speak Out Sisterhood.
Well, I have been in a lot of different programs myself where there have been mentors, and I think it's such a powerful sort of construct of having a team of young people with some kind of expert or at least more experienced person there to guide them, but not necessarily instruct them, but be there as a resource. And it really creates this great environment where the interns can collaborate and they can build off each other. If they need support, they have somebody to reach out to, but they're not necessarily dependent upon that person to be holding their hands as they're walking through it. And that's what I think mentorship is really all about. Those people that you can reach out to and who can be there for you when you need them, but not necessarily have to be there at every step of the way. And so with our program, we really wanted to make sure that our mentors could be there as that resource and particularly be able to provide expert insight on what it's like to be a woman in STEM so that our interns, as they're developing their projects, can have that insider information. Because obviously, we are still college students. All of our programming is for college students. And so as much as we definitely have experienced what it's like to be a woman, we definitely do not have the same kind of experience as a professional in STEM would. And so that's really what the mentorship component of our project, of our program, is really all about. Um, Supplementing that knowledge with different sort of perspectives, all in that same conversation of what does it mean to be a woman in STEM and how can we make things better.
And has it been easy to find these mentors? And again, another plug, if someone is interested in being a mentor, what is the right type of person to be a mentor? And then how can somebody become a mentor with you?
So for our program, mentors need to be a graduate student or beyond, women identifying in some kind of STEM field. And so, that's really open to pretty much like a lot of people. It's been really great recruiting mentors for the fall. We've already had a lot of interest. And I was actually emailing another mentor today. We call them advisors, just because it feels better to call, like, that sort of fits the role better. But yeah, I've just really used my own connections and used my network to find people. And most people who express interest are genuinely eager to be a part of the cultivation of leadership in these young people. And I remember our mentors from the last program were just so thrilled to see the way that their interns thrived. And I think it's a really powerful experience to be a mentor, and hopefully, our program is able to provide that the same level of enrichment to the mentors as it does to the mentees.
Wow. Yeah, that relationship always goes both ways, right? That's why, I
Yeah.
mean, I really encourage more people to be advisors and mentors because,
And coaches.
and
One of my professors
coaches,
really likes using that word because it kind of implies more of a, I'm here to, lift you up rather than, instruct you on how to do things right.
understood, understood. I've had some mean coaches in my experience, so I don't really know, Watkins, you're running too slow or something like that. But now, like, so, you just, and correct me if I'm wrong, you just finished your first year at
Right.
Carolina. What's your major?
Biology.
Biology, right? And I'm certain people are coming to you, and if they haven't, they should, right? Every first year STEM student, regardless of the gender that they identify with, should come to you, like, just period. And if they did, right, how would you tell them? I mean, or how would you advise them on how to navigate the workload, right? How would you advise them on, help seeking behavior if you feel that's important? Because you've established a network, and that's really, really important in regards to if you decide one day you need help, you need to understand where to go. So having a network is
Right.
really, really important. But how would you advise that student setting foot on Carolina's campus or any campus for that matter as a first year STEM student?
Um, my first piece of advice would be really be realistic about your expectations and your own capacity. You may think that you can get up at 5 a.m. every day to grind for a few hours and then go to the gym and then go to classes and then stay up till 1 a.m. to do more homework. You can't. You're not a machine, you're a human being. And it's definitely overwhelming your first year. I definitely felt overwhelmed because you want to do everything. You don't yet know the kind of person you want to be on that campus yet. And so you really want to try everything and talk to as many people as you can and get to know people. And that can be really tiring. And you want to take as many classes as you can, and really like knock out all those credits. It's the thrill is definitely there, but at the same time, you have to make sure to pace yourself. And I know this is cliched, and I know that everybody says that, but it's true because, and I want to say it in the sense of not necessarily don't do everything because you don't want to burn out, but more just allow yourself to explore because that's important. You don't want to come in with this preconceived notion of, okay, I'm going to do these two clubs. I'm going to take these exact classes for the next 4 years and I'm going to be done. Give yourself that ability to learn who you are in a different setting. Like I came into college thinking I was going to be, bio major, medical, medicine, literature and culture minor, and then some kind of like other sciencey minor, maybe like a public policy or something minor. Um, and I thought I was going to go into pediatrics. So clearly, I am very different 1 year out, and now that I haven't changed that much. Like I'm still very much med school driven. I'm going to go into women's health, and which is another thing I was thinking about at the time. And I'm still a biology major, but I allowed myself the ability to adapt to the new things I was learning about myself and pursue different experiences. And for instance, I took Calc 3 my first year and loved it so much. I was like, I want to do this for the next 4 years. And so I'm a math minor now. I also founded a company. And so, entrepreneurship became a part of my life as well. All these things that I let myself learn about. And I learned about myself because I did give myself that ability to explore, but I did at the same time, try and do everything. So I think one thing that really helped me was understanding at least a little bit about who I was and what I wanted when I got to college. So then I wasn't like completely grasping for straws. Um, versus, you know, that doesn't mean you'll be set in your ways about everything you want to do, but at the same time, know a little bit about what you're interested in. So then you know sort of where to go and you don't feel that overwhelm of there's so much, I don't know what to do when you go to your first club fair and there's literally like 200 tables and you can't even see your friend when they're like 2 feet away from you because there's 3 people in between y'all. And that, that can be overwhelming, but having sort of a realistic understanding of who you are and what you want is helpful. And sometimes having mentors who can help bring you that clarity is really important. So talk to people, learn about what they do, learn about what it's like for them, pick up on their study hacks. I could definitely tell you a lot of study hacks for chemistry here. If you just walk up to me, I'll tell you. Because you're not going to know everything. You're not going to know everything about yourself. You're not going to know everything about what it's like to be a college student. And instead of trying to come in and be all this invincible, I know what I can do, allow yourself to learn and let other people help you and guide you. And then you'll do so much better than you would have otherwise.
Wow, that's awesome. That is really, really incredible. I also heard, and I've got three more questions. I know your time is precious because, as you just articulated, you're a founder, you're a CEO, and you're also a rising sophomore at Carolina. So I do know that, but I also appreciate it, and I don't know if you said it before, but I caught it just then. You said y'all, right? So it's like there's. I
As
heard
soon as I
you
said
were
that, I
like
was
there's
like, is
three
he gonna say
people in
something?
between y'all. There's three people in between y'all. I was like, hold on, you're from North Carolina. You're from North Carolina, right?
I am, yeah, I grew up here.
Yeah, I definitely heard it. So if you didn't know, she's from North Carolina, and I think it's appropriate that she's trying to make science better. North Carolina is the capital of science. You can't even spell science without NC. So yeah, huge shout out to the science state. But anyway, so these are the final three questions that I'll ask you, right? So going back to the Speak Out Sisterhood, right?
Mhm,
When you kind of get into that space and you're just staring up at the sky, just imagining possibilities, right? Where do you see the
mhm.
Speak Out Sisterhood? Like, what do you want its overall impact to be? Like I said, how grand can the Speak Out Sisterhood be, and what are your visions?
Well, the thing is, we have a great model where it's not necessarily we're not constrained by any sort of limitations because the way that our model works is we contain the interns within ourselves, but we partner with different companies who then they're the ones who bring us the problems that they want to solve. And so it's very conducive to growth. And I would love to see our offerings continue to grow. Particularly the populations of college age students we're able to serve become more diverse and particularly include those who don't otherwise have opportunities like this, underrepresented populations and areas and individuals. Um, and I would really love us to become one of the, if not um, the most trusted and or prominent place for young women to come and have that launching pad into their career and be able to come and connect with other young leaders and have that opportunity to be on the forefront of some kind of societal impact in an opportunity that college women may not get otherwise. And be able to do that in a global setting where they're connecting with people from all across the world and getting to really build a global mindset as they're also working to drive change. I really envision us becoming a place where women of all age of not of all ages, but of all locations and all perspectives and all backgrounds can come together and feel that that amazing feeling when you feel competent and confident and secure in yourself and able to take on whatever the world throws at you, which is not a feeling that women get to experience very often, but definitely deserve to feel a lot more. So that's my idealistic way of saying I want us to grow a lot and be big and powerful and impactful and all that. And really just be more effective at achieving our goals of cultivating that leadership potential and vision in young women.
Aynsley Szczesniak, CEO of the Speak Out Sisterhood. Next question, because mentorship is so important. We talked about it a little bit. I guess two questions. Well, one question because I have to have another one right there. Uh, who who is your role model? Who is your advisor? I'm trying to get kind of like a historic figure or a celebrity that you kind of look up to. I mean, if it's the person that you see when you look in the mirror, so be it. But what is like, who is your role model? Who do you look up to?
Well, I would say a lot of different people are my role models. I don't have just like one person because each person I looked up to teaches me something different. Whether it's a woman who I've known for about a year at this point, who really was one of the first people to believe in me as a young woman leader and really has championed me throughout the process of building my company. She's been there when I've been, slammed with imposter syndrome. She's been there when all I wanted to do was just gush for an hour about everything that we've been up to. I'm indebted to her for just being that support for me. At the same time, there's so many other women I can think of who have been inspiring to me in different ways. A woman who runs a company where basically what they do is they're calling ruling our experiences. They do a report every couple of years on the state of girls in the United States. It's really a groundbreaking sort of initiative because nobody's ever done that kind of research before. And they integrate that into like a leadership development curriculum for like middle school girls. And so she's the one who really first opened my eyes to this idea of maybe it's not the STEM education that's the problem, but the character skills and the confidence and the leadership skills that women are missing out on. Some of my friends, who are just as they're just amazing. One of my friends is so incredibly kind and thoughtful, and she reminds me to really stop and smell the roses and appreciate everything I've done. At the same time, another one of my friends also runs a company, and so we get to chat about company stuff all the time. And just I don't know, like surrounding myself with all these different women who are just so powerful and achieving such amazing things and teaching me so much about what it means to be a trailblazer as a woman. I'm just indebted to them all. And I could probably go on listing more and more people because again, my network is really, I think, the most valuable thing I could ever have because it's all the people that I've ever been able to connect with and learn from and get to know and who've been there for me when I needed them. And um, yeah, I would definitely say, there's not a one person answer to that question. And I think I'll continue to have more and more people every time I meet another woman leader, more and more people I can add to that list. Because I think every woman has, an inspirational part of them. Um, and I learned something from everyone that I meet.
All right, last question. And by the way, thank you so much for that insight. I mean, there's so many people who can understand exactly where you come from, right? It takes a village to kind of raise us, to bring
Yeah.
us up. And so to just say one person sometimes is difficult because so many people contribute. But I will
Mhm.
say this, I don't have a script. I'm not a great podcaster. I really do hope that you had a decent time being
That was
with
so much
me
fun.
as I as our guest today. But when I interview the most amazing people that I can find, whether they're thought leaders or policymakers, there's just so much to cram into the very limited time that we have that invariably
Right.
I leave out something, right? I mean, I know what the feeling is to be interviewed and you walk out of the interview and you're like, why did they ask me about this? They spent all the time talking about this. And so I know I left something out. So I just wanted to provide you a space here at the tail end of our interview to kind of ask a question that I should have asked and then provide an answer kind of to that question, right? I know that's a weird thing, but I try to do it at the end of every episode because, right, you're just such an amazing person and it's hard to talk about all the amazing things that you do. And there's some things that I'm just ignorant of. So, with the last remaining time that we have, what question did I miss?
I love that question. Um, I would say, what are your faults? Because I feel like a lot of times when I look at like a leader or particularly a woman leader, all we sort of focus on is their strengths. Like, oh my gosh, they're so like, look at how impressive things they've done, and like they've achieved this and they've achieved that and they've achieved this. But I feel like that really does kind of defeat the purpose of a leader, because part of being a leader is being vulnerable enough to embrace the fact that you don't know everything. And that's leadership as a character skill, not as a position or a title. That's leadership as a thought, a mindset. And so I would say, while I definitely have strengths, many strengths that I know of, like I'm very proactive, I'm very dedicated to what I care about. I'm very loyal to people. I always follow up on promises, and I love building connections with people because I love getting to be a part of their journey and help them thrive, because that makes me feel amazing. But at the same time, I'm also very flawed, and I embrace that because that is what makes me a better leader, embracing my flaws and being able to connect with people who can help me, um, who can help kind of complement those flaws with their own strengths. So, for instance, I can be spontaneous sometimes. I can be very spontaneous. And so that does make things a little complicated when you're running an organization, because you can't really be spontaneous sometimes. And so that's where I've been able to, really having other people sort of relying on me has taught me how to couple my spontaneity with realism, where it's like, okay, this is a really cool idea. Let's tone it down a little bit and think for a second, how can we actually feasibly make this happen? What are sort of the steps that we need to do in order to get there? Realizing that there are people who are relying on me to be the one kind of setting out the plan has really helped me embrace my spontaneity, not necessarily as just the way I should go about my life, just like spontaneous decision after another, but more of having that be kind of the kickstart for a more prolonged, thoughtful planning process. Um, so that's, I think, one thing. Another flaw I would say I would have is I talk a lot, as evidenced by this conversation. And so I've been really working hard on trying to like not talk so much and listen more, because again, another tenet of leadership is letting your community's needs guide your work rather than your own conceived notions of what they need guide whatever thing you try and impose upon them. Somebody I met at a conference in February taught me something similar to that, and I really liked it because I really liked how we put it, because especially with like diversity, equity, inclusion work, with social impact work, it's all about reacting to the needs of the community that you're trying to benefit. You're not trying to come in and be like, I'm educated, I know what's wrong with you, and I can fix it. That's like in medicine, that's the same thing. People like to do that, and that's not how medicine works. Just as it's not how innovation works. It's, what is your problem? And how can I use my skills and my knowledge and my experiences to help solve that problem? That's exactly what we do with our internship. And so I don't know, where was I going? Oh yeah. I think that's something also that I've had to learn, how to sort of shift that mindset from, don't come in, I'm not going to come in here and just talk at them for like 30 minutes and tell them why I'm so qualified. I'm going to use this time to help them feel validated, them feel valued and seen. And then we can come to a deeper place of connection and trust than we could have if I'd just come in being like, I'm smart and I can teach you what to do. So I'd say that's sort of, I think, a question that I want to try and ask myself a lot, which is not necessarily where do I suck, but like what are the pieces of me that I need other people to help me sort of complement and where can I continue to improve? What is it about me that I can still improve on? Because I think that's what humbles you as a leader. That's what keeps you humbled and reminds you that while you are in a leadership position, you're not above other people. You're still a human being. You still have to be a human being, and um, that's okay. You don't have to be perfect.
Oh, wow, wow. Aynsley Szczesniak,
I'm just like
CEO.
waxing poetic here now.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. Aynsley Szczesniak, CEO and founder of the Speak Out Sisterhood, dropping jewels here at the end of the Richard Watkins podcast. And I love every single second of it. Before I wrap up, I have to do it one more time. Where can people find you? What are your socials?
So Instagram is at speak hashtag underscore out underscore sisterhood. LinkedIn is just Speak Out Sisterhood, or my name, Aynsley Szczesniak. Instagram again, Aynsley Szczesniak, just my full name. And then we also have an email. It's outreach at speakoutsisterhood.org. Please definitely do send us emails. I'm super responsive. We're super responsive. And we'd love to, answer your questions about our programs or opportunities to get involved, leadership. We're always, super open to potential more leadership team members. So yeah, that's how to get in touch with us.
Awesome. Aynsley, I have to say, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being a student, for being a scholar, first and foremost. Thank you for being a visionary. Thank you for being an entrepreneur. Thank you for being a leader. It's inspiring to hear you. Thank you for being vulnerable at the end and talking about your flaws. That was awesome. Thank you for recognizing the need for representation in STEM, and not only recognizing but putting the pieces together to address it. So, STEM is just better in the future than it is right now. I just am very, very grateful for you just being in this space. And moreover, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join with us here on, like I said, the latest and greatest episode of the Richard Watkins podcast. Thank you so much, Ainsley. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been an honor.
Take care and bye.